I'm seeing a lot of people have very big feelings with very few facts underlying them right now about the fact that Mark Carney is about to become Canada's Prime Minister. And that is, by the way, going to happen very soon, according to reporting from Global News, which just came out and says that Mark Carney is expected to be sworn in as Prime Minister on Friday. Which means that, and this is just my opinion based on some reporting that we've seen that implies that this is likely, we're probably going to be plunged into an election very, very soon. Which makes sense given criticisms he's already starting to face from people who seem to not be super informed about how our parliamentary system works. People are really mad that Mark Carney becomes Prime Minister without an actual election. But this has happened multiple times before. And it's not true that no one voted for him. There was a Liberal leadership race, and the party itself voted for a new Liberal leader. And Mark Carney won that vote overwhelmingly. Like, he got 85.9% of the vote on the first ballot. And the thing is, like, people have been calling for Trudeau to resign for a really long time now. So he did, and when a Liberal leader resigns, someone has to replace them, and they're usually chosen by the Liberal Party. And by usually, I mean always. So you guys are upset about the outcome of the process that you've been calling for. And it's not the first time this has happened. And a really fun little history fact is that the most recent time that this happened was actually after the elder Trudeau resigned. And before people come at me and say, oh, Rachel, you're forgetting about Kim Campbell, I am not. She had a seat in Parliament when she was appointed Prime Minister, so it's not an exact parallel. In 1984, Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau announced his intention to step down, and in June of that year, John Turner, who had not been elected to Parliament, won the Liberal Party leadership on the second ballot. 2 weeks later, he was sworn in and he succeeded Trudeau. And somehow, our democracy didn't dissolve, despite what some accounts on Twitter seem to be implying could happen the day that Carney's sworn in. I do personally think that it would be a good idea for Carney to call an election as soon as possible, just to try to verify his mandate with the Canadian people. And again, all reporting seems to suggest that that's what he intends to do. But nothing about the process that's happening right now is contrary to how our parliamentary system and our democracy works. And there are still the same checks and balances that existed before with respect to legislation being able to be enacted. First of all, Parliament isn't even sitting right now because it's been prorogued. And if it comes back before an election is called, because again, I think Carney probably will call one soon, then the form it returns in is the Liberal minority government, which was the outcome of the 2021 election. So the Liberals can't successfully pass any legislation without getting the support of at least one other party. So the idea of some unelected globalist dictator being able to just swoop in and change Canada as we know it, ridiculous, not gonna happen. The most likely outcome if Carney doesn't call an election within the next 12 days because Parliament returns on March 24th, what we'll see is the other parties introduce a non-confidence vote, which will probably result in the government being toppled and an election taking place at that point. So Mark Carney can't even do much damage here if he wanted to, and the most likely next outcome is that we're going to have an election and he will either be an elected Prime Minister, which is possible because the polls are tightening, or he'll lose that election and then you guys will be happy because Pierre Poilievre will be Prime Minister, so you'll have gotten what you wanted. So yeah, I think it's really irresponsible that some people are taking to social media and just spewing nonsense to their audiences and implying that any of this isn't normal, hasn't happened before, and is in any way antithetical to our democracy. But calling Mark Carney an unelected, anointed globalist WEF lackey freaks people out and gets you a lot more clicks than when I sit here and tell you the extremely boring reality of what's next for our parliamentary system and the checks and balances that exist and the limitations of what one person can do in that capacity. It's boring, which is good. We kind of like a little boring, you know? I mean, look what's going on in the States. That's not boring, but I wouldn't want that right now. There are some very real decisions that Mark Carney has already made that you can definitely criticize him for, like his decision on who his new chief of staff is. But trying to imply there's something nefarious about a very normal thing that's happened in Canadian democracy multiple times since we became a country is just dumb. So if I could make a little recommendation to the people who are picking up microphones and making videos about Canadian politics right now, If something has you freaked out, do a little research before you jump on the internet and bring those fears to everyone else, because they might not be accurate. What do you think of all this?